believe me, I've been more than happy just to play the new album. I'm just thought that people would appreciate you know, creating it. I mean, there's a lot of material. There's many. It's a whole kind of world in a sense, and it's a world that's changed so much that the songs from Modern Life is Rubbish or Leisure or Part Life are all even Great Escape, even actually all our albums virtually, and maybe 13 was beginning, all pre-internet. It's extraordinary to think that there's a whole body of work that we have, and we're still the same people. We're like, actually it's B-I and then
B-I and A-I. So we existed mostly in B-I.
Yeah. A-I after the internet.
Anno internet.
But also artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
So, there's a lot of losses happened.
It's good to give them some bits. We're being kind of nice. We're giving a small amount for a nice taste.
Yeah.
But, giving them a good lot of familiarity and classic kind of stuff that would suit a festival. And, we have to play the game. We have a certain amount of time on a festival.
I want people to be entertained.
Want to see the smiling faces.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
Not confused faces.
But we're playing quite a lot of songs from Modern Life is Rubbish, It's definitely a period we're leaning into, and I think and I think that's why it all feels so natural at the moment, because clearly that was a time when we were, I think that's before we became in any way kind of sort of transformed by fame. So it's a kind of interesting place for us to be, That's on stage. I don't think we've ever been so relaxed, have we?
No, it's amazing.
So relaxed.
Yeah, Modern Life is Rubbish was almost before we had really established an audience or anything.
Yeah, so there's something about
I suppose we feel a bit like that as far as when we're in the studio and any pressures are not there. It's fucking good for a 54-year-old to be doing a couple of Wembleys.
Even better for a 55-year-old.
I'm quite happy that, it's like none of us had, I can never ever look forward when I was 25 and think to 54 would Blur be doing, gosh, it would be...
Oh, it's impossible to...
I'd be amazed if that was the case.
Horrifying yourself being that old.
But
terrifying.
But at the same time, playing the shows we're playing this year, it's a confusing thought for an us at 25. I think, who are we then? Who are we in the future when we're this age?
What do we look like?
Do we look like Simple Minds? Do we have mad hair? And what are we looking like? But but we're the same. We're
we all still here?
We're just so similar to what we were always like.
We did it almost. We did that while we were still promoting it was kind of part of the same album, really, in a way, but a slightly more paranoid version.
Yeah, it was sort of coming down a bit, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a very bad mistake making a record while you're experiencing insane levels of fame and notoriety. It's not good. It's not conducive to making music. We did a good job considering, but you're like, we were making music and then going out and having just ridiculous experiences. Well, same for Graham and I. He's a fantastic person to have in the studio. It's great for everyone because, he can illustrate what we all want by playing the instrument if that's necessary, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
And
he's there being in an explorative way as well. Yeah. He's not really like a daddy, father figure.
He's in the band. He's in the band making the record with you. He's part of the band.
It's good. It's interesting. it's interesting to hear, because I've recorded in that same space at the top of his house where he did all of that album, and so it's kind of familiar. It's a familiar sound. But what I like about him, and I listen very carefully to his production and how they sound, and the other instrument, there's some woodwind in there somewhere, and then but the drum sounds are so good.
Yeah,
and that's one of the hardest.
Yeah, he's brilliant with drums.
And the other way, I think.
Yeah, and the other way, exactly.
I mean, in some ways, we can try stuff out with other things, or try stuff out in Blur. A song will give you an opportunity to try something that you've been maybe waiting for that opportunity for a few years, you know, and then finally you get to do it. You can't always force a kind of a little sonic idea. You've got to wait for the opportunity to unleash, you know, and Blur's always been good for that, because there's such a different, there's such a lot of different sounds and approaches, really. Different types of music, maybe, within the same band. But we have different, we have we're a band having differences. These differences are minute, that if you actually look outside of the band at the differences you may have with people walking around in England. Also.
It's like
I mean, it's big difference there.
It's like saying to an alien visitor that everyone looks different. They just all look the same. Sound the same.
I think really we're talking about people who want to do a service to the music they make. And it really doesn't matter what else is going on, you know, and that's a preoccupation. That's a massive preoccupation.
And
I know with myself and Damon, you know, the music is what is making the laws, you know.
And we're not interested in anything else that any of us have done when we're in the studio together. There's only one thing that we're concentrating on, is that. It's irrelevant, everything else. It has to be like that, otherwise you'd never get anywhere. I mean, just think of us as a band.
Well, finally, I think some people are seeing us as what we always would have seen ourselves as.
Seeing ourselves as, yeah.
We are just making sense of, you know, life in the moment. We're making music, and that's always been all the way along. These are just how we're reacting to the world and our lives at the given moment. And so it's not really to do with movements in music or Britpop or ideologies that are shared with other bands. It's really never been like that for us. We've been called Britpop, and I get called a Britpop guitarist. I think that's disgusting. That's so sort of limiting. I mean, what does that mean, you know? So what does it mean? But hopefully, because of our longevity, that is sort of proving that just because we were making a lot of music in the 90s, it wasn't necessarily Britpop, and that Britpop seemed like a kind of a strange, cloying, desperate sort of, I don't know what it
had nothing. It's nothing to do with us.
Thing that was taken up.
Great for the papers, but you know, we have this obsession in our country, for good and for bad, with ourselves, because we're an island, very inward-looking. So unfortunately, when the image in the mirror is one of Brexit, we become obsessed with that as well. You know, I mean, so I recommend everyone just to ignore us when we start talking about our British identity, because, you know, we're just an island, an insecure island. Yeah, no, of course it's in there. It's on this record as well, but it's just, I think you couldn't call this a Britpop album, even if you tried, even if they try.
I think we're English, so we're constantly like a bit nauseated by it. And so it's going to just go into everything we do. But.
Yeah, and also we're still reeling from this kind of sort of travesty of Brexit. Disastrous decision, of which I had no part. It is suffering the consequences. It's just the most stupid thing to try and alienate your nearest neighbours. And, you know, I doubt economically that it will ever make any sense because, you know, also, why would you stop trading with your biggest trading partners? There's so many reasons why it doesn't make sense. It's a very negative thing, and I can only apologise on behalf of all the people on the British Isles who didn't vote for Brexit.
I think with Modern Life is Rubbish, we were finally finding who we were.
Yes.
There's some tracks on Modern Life is Rubbish that we recorded by ourselves without a producer and made it onto that album, and we were not really using those devices of Manchester or whatever anymore. We weren't putting drum loops on necessarily. We were freeing ourselves up, concentrating more on song structures, almost going sort of more old school. But it's a funny time, the 90s. It was early 90s. There was music that was on top of the pop song music. It was such a confusion. There was like old ravers still making some music. There was like there wasn't very much. It was a bit of a hole when Manchester was coming, and then this Britpop thing took off. So we were really having to find who we were in that little space.
Yeah,
and Modern Life is Rubbish is us on the way to Park Life, almost on the train, on the front. You know, this is where we're heading.
I think it's also good that we've been away for so long, because I think in the cyclical nature of music and fashion, guitar music is becoming more fashionable again. So it's good to have waited it out.
I think it was, and so we were just listening to, like kids do today, as much different sorts of music to inform us as possible, whatever it was, you know, Wire or Pink Floyd, post-punk, psychedelic, Julian Cope, some other 80s stuff. It was all sort of rubbing off on us. We couldn't just say, Spotify, play us some stuff I'm going to like, you know, and it would go on all day playing you things that we really had to just find it in our own record collections and friends' records. You know, it wasn't as easy to just research as it is now.
Oh my God, no.
You can get a lot from, you know, it's sort of, you get the Pebbles albums, the garage psychedelic stuff, and you get a Scott Walker album, and then you've already got the Beatles. We've all got the Beatles, so that's a lot of ground there.
Yeah.
So there's a hell and the Kinks, and we've got this. There's so much already there that perhaps that to have more than that would be confusing, you know.
But I like kind of the clever ones as always. I like sort of art schooling bands. I like Yard Act. I like Wooloo.
I love Jop Strap. I love that record. I like how it's everything is really looked at, and
I think pink guitar music went for a terrible period. Awful. Really bad.
I don't like when there's guitars in music and there's no sex, or there doesn't seem to be any roots. I mean, you can blame several
horribly
people.
generic.
You can blame some people for it, but
awful, and he's just sort of turned away when you saw something with a guitar in it. You know.
Yeah, you kind of knew what you were going to hear, and that was sad. You're not allowed to go to London and live there, really. It's so difficult to afford to be in London.
Yeah, we could live in squats
we used
back
to
in
squat.
the 80s. I mean, you didn't...
Rent was cheaper, and you could go there and experiment.
Now,
Can't do
living
it.
in central London for nothing in a squat with loads of other like-minded people. It's also the destruction of the art school education system in our country. It's been decimated. So, you know, people who used to go to art schools, not many of them would end up becoming fine artists professionally, but they'd all have that inquiry kind of sort of instilled in them, and that sense of creative freedom encouraged. So
Yeah, you'll learn to develop ideas, you know. You'll learn to work on ideas. I think they sort of have a...
very passionate, you know, not dissimilar to South American audience.
They're really pleased. I like to be pleased. I like that they're really
Sing.
happy to see you, you know. That's good.
They love singing. I love that. I mean, honestly, a big crowd singing is just, it's pure joy.
Yeah.